Hey everyone, this is Josh, and today we're going to talk about the new David Fincher film, The Killer. As a quick heads up, this video will contain some spoilers, so if you don't want to hear any, I'd advise you click away right now, or go to this point in the video, which contains my final thoughts on this film. There's your warning. 3, 2, 1. This film is based off the French graphic novel series of the same name by Alexis Madsen-Lent, and man, we have been long overdue for a new Fincher film. My favorite director. We did get Meg not too long ago, which came out in 2020, but I don't know, that film kind of felt like an aberration in the context of Fincher's overall filmography. It was still very much a Fincher film, but it felt like it functioned primarily as a passion project, with it being written by his father, and a story that was considerably less accessible than his past films because of how insular and personal it felt. It just wasn't the type of thing that I found myself to be invested in. I was super excited to see Fincher getting back to the type of material that he's so good at handling. The Killer isn't a murder mystery like Zodiac or Seven, but it definitely has that classic Fincher noir style that lends itself to themes he has treaded so many times before, like obsession, perfectionism, and power. And while The Killer might be lacking in meaning, which I'll talk more about in detail later, as a straightforward sort of B-movie that feels really in tune with the source material, with very precise direction and a focused performance by Michael Fassbender, it really can't get any better than this. This film is more similar to something like Panic Room than most of Fincher's other more prestigious works, in that its aspirations seem pretty low and that it's just a simple story not looking to make a huge artistic statement. This is about an assassin who makes a mistake and has to go about cleaning it up in the most professional way possible. That's it. There are some subtle messages in the film, like how our consumer convenience-driven economic system gives people very fast access to powerful tools that can be used to hurt people pretty easily. The product placement in Fincher's films can get on my nerves sometimes, but it's really funny to see it used in a way to promote the product scene in The Killer for the most sinister reasons imaginable.
Get 1-day delivery on an Apple AirTag that you can use to stalk your ex. Get 2-day delivery on this fucking stainless steel full tang ninja sword so you can show her what happens when she breaks your heart.
I think the most prominent message running through this film, though, is the obsession and struggle with perfection. There are some really well put together action scenes in this film, but most of it is comprised of the main character just getting from point A to point B, covering his tracks, doing reconnaissance, and prepping for the next big task. You know, doing the boring but necessary parts of the job. And while I think these less exciting moments can come off as a little pointless and repetitive filler to the story, I couldn't help but feel like they were there for a purpose. If I had to guess, I think this film is David Fincher examining his own artistic process and how perfectionism can be harmful or even a trap to some extent. For context, Fincher is well known for being very meticulous and running demanding, exhausting productions with lots of takes and precise attention to detail. The main character in this film often talks about how tedious his work can be, calling it incredibly boring, saying it's amazing how physically exhausting it can be to do nothing all day, talking about how sleep deprivation is a form of torture. All of those things can be said about film production without a doubt. The main character repeats this mantra to himself to not have empathy, stick to the plan, don't improvise, which sounds synonymous to past Fincher statements like, the only thing I care about at the end of the day is whether or not we told the story. The main character is an unreliable narrator because if he truly lived up to this mantra and didn't have empathy, he wouldn't be going on this revenge mission after the people who tried to kill his love interest in the first place. I think what this film is saying is that human nature is naturally at odds with perfection, and so what is the point of being a perfectionist if you can't even enjoy it? Another aspect of the story that leads me to believe this is coming from the perspective of Fincher is how the character talks about needing to be part of the disciplined few and not the weak, and how it's a dog-eat-dog world. It's that perfectionism, that excessive attention to process and detail that gives this character the validation that he's the predator and not the prey, up until, of course, he makes a mistake and is human again. It's after that that he realizes that he's yet just another disposable asset to a greater power, a feeling that David Fincher has spoken about in regards to the Hollywood studio system and how if your movies don't make them $1 billion, then they don't want you. Now, I do wish this contradiction within the main character could have gotten fleshed out a bit more and not just been implied. We see the love interest like twice in this film. We don't know anything about them. There's no explanation as to how she and the main character met or any information about their bond with each other. There's nothing to go off of. I feel like this movie could have just spent maybe a minute, 2 minutes more to give us a sense of what this relationship looks like. Maybe the reason it didn't was because the film wants us to only experience this one side of the character, and like the character, they're making an intentional choice to suppress the other part or parts of himself. I don't know. What I do know is that with this film being as cold as it is and having a message that is mostly implied and not deep, it's not gonna be for the people looking for something more meaningful. But if you're looking for a no-frills hitman movie with exceptional cinematography, music, editing, and direction, I think you're gonna like this a lot. There are a few sequences in this movie that are so fucking good, bro. Like, the first 20 to 30 minutes especially are great. This film features some of Fincher's best work in putting together really slick, cool, badass action sequences. I don't want to spoil too much, but there's a great scene at one point involving a large character that the protagonist has to deal with, and it is a lot of fun to watch. Even during the scenes where not much is happening and it's mostly process as mentioned earlier, Fincher finds a way to make the most out of these scenes and get every single last bit of juice he can out of them. The score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross really adds a lot to all of the scenes of process. The Smith songs are also used really cleverly. What I think also helps is the narration. The protagonist barely speaks for most of the film, so it allows us to better understand his nihilistic worldview that I think Fincher is kind of making fun of. Sure, the narration is definitely a little corny and unnecessary at times, but I kind of vibed with the overall tone and feeling that it evokes. The main character just talks endlessly about how meaningless life is and how he's above it all, which can get really funny when it's juxtaposed with other moments of his inner monologue getting interrupted by things happening around him or when he makes mistakes. If you can watch this in theaters, I would really encourage you to do so, because there's a good chance that your home TV or your crappy phone or iPad is not going to do the sound design the justice it deserves when you watch it on Netflix. I love how the music will alternate from being full blast when we're seeing something from the point of view of the main character, and then when we're seeing a shot of the main character and we're not in that point of view, the music becomes the sounds that we would hear in the world if you listen to someone listening to something with their headphones on. The film is able to find a really interesting rhythm where the music, the narration, and the other sound taking place is balanced in such a way that builds suspense naturally. You know, when I first left the theater, I thought this movie was kind of just fine, but the more I think about it and the more time goes by, I just want to see it again. This film remembers to have fun. It's simple and there's not much to it, but this is the type of solid B movie that you can easily watch with yourself or a bunch of friends and be entertained by its 2-hour runtime. With that said, I'm gonna give The Killer a 4 out of 5. It's a low 4, but still a 4. Thanks for watching this review, guys. I really appreciate it. Let me know what you thought about The Killer in the comments section below. If you like what you see, then hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, send me a donation, give me Christmas gifts. Yeah, thanks again, and I will see you next time.